my name is Eva Ponce, and in this video, I'm going to review SC4x, Supply Chain Technology and Systems. This is the fifth and final course as part of the MicroMaster program. So, what did you learn in SC4x? There are three main learning objectives in SC4x. The first one is to learn how to manage big data. The second learning objective is to learn how to organize and how to manage information flows in a supply chain. And the third learning objective is to understand how these things work in the real world, is to bring reality to this course. Let's start with the first learning objective, data management. So why data management? Data drives modern societies, the modern world. We are using mobile computing. We are generating almost a single transaction for every single action we are doing. When we are purchasing, when we are ordering for a product, we are generating a transaction. And this is generating a big amount of data. So companies need to deal with this amount of big data. And what happened is that we have been using spreadsheets in the last 4 courses. But the spreadsheets are an unstructured way to manage the data. And for this big amount of data, we need more sophisticated ways to deal with this analysis and big data analysis in order to have greater analysis. A database is a structured way to store this data. And when we are talking about databases, cleaning is one of the most important processes in databases. We need to clean the data. We need to identify nulls. We need to identify outliers because data integrity depends on this cleaning process. And the quality of the database also relies on these cleaning processes. We review here different types of databases. We review here online transaction processing and online analytical processing. We also review SQL. This is, or in other words, a structured query language. This is a language that allows us to retrieve data, fetch data from a database. The most common command in SQL is select. This command allows us to fetch data from a table. And I also encourage you to review the different type of joins and joins tables. We also review here non-SQL databases in this part of the course. Then we move to machine learning as a set of tools that help us to identify patterns in data. So in machine learning tools, we have different kinds of tools. Tools more focused on reduce the dimensionality of the variables, for instance, principal component analysis. PCAs allows us to reduce the dimensionality of the problem. We also have clustering techniques. In clustering techniques, what we are using is grouping data, but we do not know the groups ahead of time. K-means is an example of clustering techniques. And we also use classification techniques. Examples of these classification techniques are random forest and decision trees. So we use all of these tools and techniques in order to identify patterns of data that allow us to make predictions. We have 2 types of learning tools, supervised and unsupervised learning tools. In supervised learning tools, we are using the outcome variable. We are using labels in order to identify this pattern in data. However, in unsupervised learning tools, we do not know this outcome variable. So we are just using the relationship in between the inputs in order to predict and identify these patterns in data. Then we move to the supply chain systems. In supply chain, we need information technology. We need information technology because supply chains are large, are complex, and we need to manage the relationship in between the different actors in a supply chain. there are different ways of communication that we need to manage in a supply chain. We need to manage communication in between business to business communication. We need to manage the communication business to consumer, between the business and the end customer. And we also need to manage communication machine to machine. And welcome here to the alphabet soup. I'm going to use now tons of acronyms in order to explain the different systems and information system that we are using in this part. So I will start with enterprise resource planning tools. Enterprise resource planning at the end is a ledger, it's a central database to manage the whole firm. We also need here what we call the advanced planning systems. These are information systems to manage production planning and scheduling. We also use execution management systems, like for instance, transportation management system, warehouse management system, or manufacturing execution systems. And we also need ways of communication in between companies, in between firms, and in between information systems. Electronic data interchange, EDI, is a way to communicate machine to machine, computer to computer, using formatted or standard messages. And then here we also introduce visibility technologies. We introduce supply chain visibility. And we introduce track and trace technology. With track, we mean to follow the product from the origin to the destination, downstream the supply chain. And there is technology that allows us to track this product from the origin to the destination. With trace technology, what we are doing is understanding where the product is, where is the origin of the product. So this track and trace technology, we need technology here to, first, capture the data. Barcodes and RFID are examples of this technology that we need to capture the data. Then we need to transmit the data. EDI is an example, or real-time GPS is an example of tools that we can use for this transmission. And finally, we need to have access to the data. So there are different ways. One way is to integrate this with any of these execution system, like the transportation management system, integrate that with an ERP, use a supply chain management event, or using supply chain control towers for this access to the data. Then we move to software architecture and the selection and implementation. In software architecture, we introduce cloud computing. Cloud computing is a shared pool of resources, a shared pool of software, services, infrastructures. So in cloud computing, we have infrastructures as a service, software as a services, or platform as a services. We also review different ways to select the right information system for our company. As I mentioned, in large supply chains, we need this information technology in order to manage the different information flows in this supply chain. And the selection part is a relevant part of the process. And there are different approaches here. We can go and develop an in-house solution. We can outsource this solution, or we can go and pick one of the best of breed solutions. I encourage you to review these different approaches and understand the pros and cons of this different selection process. And we also review different approaches to implement the information technology solution. And here, again, there are different approaches. We can go through a direct approach, a parallel one, or a rolling approach. In any case, review that and identify the different pros and cons that you can identify in this implementation process. In SC4x, we also introduced the Fresh Connection game. This is an interactive end-to-end simulation game that allows you to make different decisions in a supply chain and understand the interactions of these decisions that you make in a function or a certain part of the supply chain in the whole supply chain. For instance, the interaction of changing the supplier in the profitability of the company. So this game is all about the interactions and the impact of making decisions in one area in another area of the company. And finally, we review different new trends and technologies in supply chain. We review blockchain, we review 3D printers, drones, autonomous vehicles, robotics, augmented reality technologies, and we analyze the impact of these new technologies in the supply chain. So I really hope that you enjoy studying SC4x, and best of luck for the CFX.